You.
Mr. Shi?
Here.
Ms. Derico?
Here.
Mrs. Ward?
Here.
Mrs. Maroney?
Here.
Mrs. Peng?
Here.
Mr. Brescher?
Here.
Mrs. Patel?
Here.
Mrs. Conway?
Present.
Dr. Chen?
Here.
All present.
Opening statement. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of this act, the Edison Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the Board of Education administrative offices. Copies of these notices were sent to the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger on January 3rd, 2019. The public may participate at regular meetings in accordance with the bylaws and the applicable state regulations. So we have a big agenda today, so just go through this. I think everyone's here is waiting for the presentation that's coming up. This is our bond referendum. This is our solution to finally solve the overcrowding and put full-day kindergarten in our school district. So today we have two guests here. We have our bond counsel, Lisa Gorup. She presented briefly before last time. And we also have our financial advisor, Dara Malki-Only. Did I say pronounce right? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so without wasting too much time, I'll let them get into it so we can see what's coming up for the bond referendum.
Good evening. The resolution that the board will be, this is on? Is that good?
Yes.
Okay. The resolution that the board will be considering at its next meeting is a referendum resolution. And the meat of that resolution is an explanatory statement and a proposal, both of which will actually be on the ballot on December 10th, 2019, the date of the election. So the resolution that the board will be considering sets forth that very specific wording that will be on the ballot, in addition to the timing of the polls, when they open, and they are required to close by 8. So in the question, again, the meat is the explanatory statement and the proposal. The explanatory statement has a broad description of the projects, that is the expansion and renovation of the schools that are included, and I can tell you what schools those are. You can follow along. It's the Lincoln Elementary, John Marshall Elementary, James Madison Intermediate School, John Adams Middle School, Edison High School, and John P. Stevens High School and their sites. So those schools are listed as being renovated and expanded to provide for overcrowding, ensure a safe and secure learning environment, provide for infrastructure needs, and eliminate education in trailers at certain of those schools. The explanatory statement also says that the total cost of the project is $1,189,500,000, and it will be funded through the interest and through long-term bonds. So the impact of these bonds and the cost of the project would be spread over the generations that use the facilities. The proposal does recite the same language. The explanatory statement is essentially just in a little more user-friendly terms. The proposal is statutorily prescribed, so it's sort of legalese, but that is exactly what the statute wants it to be, legal. The proposal does recite that 40% of the eligible costs will be funded by the state. The eligible costs of the projects are approximately $77 million. So of that 189, a little over 31 million is being provided by the state. The financial advisor is here, and she will walk you through the tax impact. But before we get to that, I just want you to know that this resolution will be considered by you at your next meeting. In addition to the explanatory statement and the proposal, it also has some ministerial provisions, the notices to the election officials that we send out on your behalf, and other ministerial items that would be required to conduct the election. So that is the resolution that you will be considering. Once you adopt this resolution, then we are authorized to send it to all the election officials and the township clerk so they can conduct the election on December 10th. Okay?
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dara Melchioni from Acacia Financial Group. As Lisa mentioned, we're the financial advisor to the district. So based on the numbers that we've received in the estimates of the project cost in a total amount of $189,500,000, we've proposed a tax impact analysis based on those numbers and a 30-year useful life of the bonds. So basically, it's an amortization schedule with a final maturity date of somewhere around 2051. So it's a 30-year schedule, and it's a level debt service schedule. So it's amortized over that 30 years. We're assuming current interest rates. So as financial advisors, we're in the market every day with issuers, so we have a good sense of where current interest rates are, municipal interest rates. So we also like to add a little cushion onto that because obviously we don't know exactly when we're going to issue these bonds. So we like to be conservative in our estimates. So that's built into our numbers. And so based on that, and we were given the average home assessment of $178,300. And based on that average assessment, the tax impact, average tax impact over the life of the bond issue is $222. Oh, so if you have a home assessment of $178,300, it's $220 per year.
That's what I
Yes.
was saying.
One thing I like to point out as well is it's not an additional $200 every single year. It's, it's $200, this is an average. So it can range from, I think our estimates range anywhere from $188 to $229. That's the min and the max. So the average is $222. So, in the first year, it's about 207, and then it goes up to 229. So it's really and that second year, it's just raising that additional amount from 229 to 207. So it's not kind of a cumulative $200 each year. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. So on average, over the life of the issue, it will be $222 based on current rates and on the tax valuation of the township.
Okay. Any board members have any questions? So we're gonna change the agenda a little bit because they're here. I don't want them to wait till the end of the meeting. So when the board member have their comments, we're gonna open up for public for any questions just for the bond referendum. Okay. So they're all here, so they can answer any question you have. So they can just leave. They don't have to wait till the end of the whole meeting because we might have a lot of other things going on. Okay. So any other board members? Yes.
Just a question. The total referendum would be $189,500,000. But my understanding is we may not borrow, or probably not borrow that money all at once.
Sure.
So say we borrow $75 million and you get a 4.5%. And then later on, we're gonna borrow another $89 million.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be at that particular rate. or it
Yes.
wouldn't be at the same rate. So
Right.
this average cost would probably change.
It could be different, yep.
For the better or for the worse.
Sure, at the
We
time that,
wouldn't be held into, not to exceed with whom we're dealing with.
right, so the rate is going to change. So obviously, there's going to, well, not obviously, but based on the construction draw schedule, yes, you might do this in phases. So there's options to do, half or a portion at a certain time, or issue notes. So there's a lot of different things that we can evaluate as you're going through this process. But yes, if you do it in phases, at each point that you go to issue, whether it's a bond or a note, you'll be borrowing at that current rate.
Now, would we be borrowing from the same, say, bank?
So, by law, you have to issue these bonds on a competitive basis. So what it is, it's a open auction. Basically, we do it online now, but you have bidders, we circulate all the documents and the marketing material to the bidders and investors, and they, on a specific date, at a specific time, send in electronically their bid. So it could be, at any point when you're doing these different phases, it could be several different banks that win that bid. Because we've found that, and by law, you have to go through that process, but you're really getting investors to sharpen their pencils and give you the best rate at that time. So that's, another reason we like to go through the electronic bidding process. But it will be different, it could be different, better or worse, every time you go and issue bonds or notes.
But is it better to do it that way than a whole
Well-
chunk? Because I'm thinking if we did the whole chunk at once, we're taking the chance that, okay, right now the interest rates are really low, but if we do it in pieces, we're not holding on to money that we're not spending right away.
Sure, that is a good point. I mean, you are taking on a little bit of interest rate risk each time you do go out, because like I said, we don't know what the rate is going to be that day you go to sell, that portion of bonds or notes. So you do take on a little bit of interest rate risk. There's also, depending on the spending, there could be arbitrage type.
Right.
Yeah,
So
go
if I
ahead.
could, I
Yeah,
could
yeah,
share this with you.
Yeah.
So when you go out to referendum, you have to have some kind of financial plan, so that there's information about the tax impact. So if the referendum passes, there's a process that goes on where.
That's it,
Okay, so when the referendum passes, we'll have a process with the administration where we say, well, how quickly are you gonna spend the money? What summers are you spending it? And what we'll try to do is see, does it make sense to sell it all at once in a low interest rate environment? Or would it better serve the board and the community to break it into two, depending on your spending? I'm so sorry. So would it be better to break it into two? So it's really we start out with this financial plan, but that doesn't preclude the board from being flexible after the referendum passes to do exactly what you're saying. Should we break it up into more than one? Or do we anticipate interest rates going up or going down? So that's where your financial advisor will help
Right,
you.
and your job.
Yes, and so what we'll do is when we do develop that plan, we'll provide different sensitivity analyses. Yep, we'll provide different sensitivity analyses so that, say it's, $100 million you're doing, at one time, we'll provide those debt service numbers, in the case where rates rise 50 basis points or they decline 50 basis points. And we can give you all sorts of scenarios to help, determine what that best course of action is.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done.
Okay, yes, Mr. Brescia.
Well, I'll let Val go first.
No, Val.
The $31 million that we get from the state, it says that it would be in the form of debt service aid. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so the state appropriates, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the
Sure.
process that goes before.
Debt service aid is kind of a fancy word for how you get your state funding. What it really is let's just step back. A bond is a mortgage. It's just borrowing money. You're going to borrow the money. The plan is over 30 years. So every year you're going to have a loan payment or a bond payment to make, right? So what the state will do is every time you have a bond payment to make, they're gonna say to you, okay, we're paying some of that bond payment, and you tax the taxpayers for the remainder of that bond payment. That's debt service aid. It comes every year to help you make your loan payment. Now, the 31 million relates to the $189 million number. In actuality, the state pays more than 31 million because they're also going to pay their share of interest as well. But the state's participation in your loan payment is debt service aid, and it comes every year in a payment to the district. Is that good? Okay.
And so the numbers that I was communicating to you are net of the debt service aid.
Okay. I guess I have two questions. Let's say that we build the exact same amount of square footage that we have and we're showing, but our cost isn't 189 million at the end of the day, it's 59 million. We would still receive the same amount of state aid, correct? If it was the same square footage that was being built.
The same percentage of state aid, yes.
It's
Well,
just a
the-
percentage of a lower amount then.
Well, let me ask you a question. The state aid, right, and tell me if I'm wrong, is 17% or 40% of $178 a square foot? Or how is it calculated? What is it?
Okay, so the state aid is calculated differently for renovation than it is calculated for new construction. So let's go over renovation.
Okay.
You have renovation in the project. The state is paying 40% of your renovation costs. That's the percentage contribution.
Up to $170-something dollars a square foot, correct?
That's new construction.
Or 40% of the total number?
No, that's new. So let's stay with
Okay.
renovation. Renovation, the eligible costs are the actual costs. So they're going to pay 40% of your eligible costs, your renovation costs.
Okay,
New construction, I think, is what you're referring to.
yes.
The state will pay up to, 40% of $143 a square
Okay.
foot. Yes, you are correct. So that's why the percentage goes down, because it costs more than $143 a square foot to build school construction.
Okay, so if out of our numbers that we have, the 189 million, if it came down to 159 million, because on the additions, we, I don't know, instead of putting terrazzo down, we put VCT or whatever, we talked about that. And we did something of that type nature, we would still get the same amount of state aid then?
You get the same percentage
No.
of state aid.
Not a dollar amount.
Not
percentage.
31 million, you'd get, it's 31 of 189,
Well, what
percentage?
I'm saying is, if we're gonna build 200,000 square feet, and we're building it at, let's say, $400 a square foot, it doesn't matter whether we're building it at $350 a square foot, or $400 a square foot, or $1,000 a square foot, the state is gonna
That's
give
right.
us 40% up to
Of-
$143 a
Yes,
square
you are
foot.
correct there, yes.
So then therefore, we will
Yes.
receive the same amount of state
Yes.
aid
Yes.
at $159 million.
Because you have that differential left, yes. I'm
Yes.
sorry, I thought you meant it came in under that, no.
Right, so now my other
Yes.
question to you is,
Renovation is different.
my other question is, if we're gonna pay about $220 or $22 for the mystical house that we have in Edison, what would it be if we didn't spend the 189 million? Or, you know, would it, instead of it being $220, would that number be 100? Or would that number be more like 180?
So, I'm gonna let the financial advisor answer that, but remember, that's assessed value, not necessarily
Yes.
market value.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just using it as a number that we can all equate to, and then we can go home and look at our tax bills and see really what we're.
So you're asking if you borrowed less?
If we borrowed less, like let's say that we found ways to reduce cost, and instead of it being 189 million, it was 159 million. what sort of savings will the taxpayer see? Right now, you're telling us it's 222 or something, right?
Right.
What would it be if it was 159 or, I mean, I'll just pick that out of my head. I
Yeah,
mean, if
we,
you,
I mean, obviously it would be less.
Right.
Right?
But are we talking
so
like $100, or are we talking?
Yeah, so we ran it
$30.
at, we actually did run it at a scenario at 159 million.
Oh, okay.
And magic.
No, that's minus state aid, that's 159.
And it came out to 187,
187.
assuming the same assessed valuation of the home.
So the difference in my taxes on the mystical house anyway is $25, $35? $35, okay.
Per year.
Right.
But yet, if you're not borrowing the 189 or the 159 and you're only borrowing 89 for the first 2 years, the first 2 years, it's not going to be the 222. It might be $100, and then after you get up to the 159, it might go up to the 222.
Right, exactly.
And we apply for these bonds initially, right? So when we get closer to the end, and we see that we're not gonna need 189, does Dan have that money sitting in that pot of money that everybody knows he has?
That's on his
Or-
mattress?
So, by law,
Right,
if you were to issue, let's use a hypothetical, you issue all 189 at once, projects come in at 159. So you
Right.
have $30 million of bond proceeds sitting somewhere,
give it
being
back.
invested. The law requires that if your project is complete and it came in at 159, that money needs to be used to pay the debt service on the bonds. It's not available for other projects. It has to be used to pay the bonds.
okay. Just keep an eye on your bucket.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Now let's open up to the public for any questions just related to this. So, anybody? Yes, go ahead, Jerry. Yeah.
I know you're talking 30-year bonds.
Name and address,
and-
please.
I'm sorry, you're talking 30-year bonds, and we're talking, oh, I'm sorry, Jerry Campione, 8 Schiffer Court, Edison. And it's 30-year bonds, and we're talking the possibility of issuing them at different times. So the 30-year term starts from the date of issuance.
Yes.
So these would be rolling 30-year bonds. So in theory, the debt could be carried out over longer than 30 years, but no longer than 30 years from the date of issuance of each bond, correct? Okay.
And that also depends on the final useful life, the final useful life of the projects that you're actually going to be funding at that time. So it might not be 30 years, it might be a little less. We typically are not going to issue bonds over 30 years. We typically don't see that in the market. But we would have to assess each project that you're funding, and just to make sure that the useful life is within the final maturity.
Okay, and I know that right now, we're in a pretty favorable interest rate
Yes, we are.
environment, so of course, there's some benefit to doing it, but would the bonds be callable in the
Yes.
event, so that, in the event that
Typically we'll do,
the market moves away?
yes, so typically we'll do a 9 or 10-year par call, which gives you the flexibility to, it's a refunding, but it's basically like a refinancing of a mortgage, basically. You're able to call those back if, at that time, the current rates are lower than your borrowing rate. You can go and issue refunding bonds, and you can generate that debt service savings.
Okay,
So yes, they'll typically be callable.
okay. Any other public comments? Just that, just ask them when they're still here. Nope? See none? Okay. Thank you. And, probably we'll have more down the road, but, yeah. So we'll probably have a calculator, somewhere that we're gonna post so people can find out exactly, based on the assessment value, what's impact of this, bond referendum is to the.
Does anybody want to know how long it'll take
Yeah.
to construct?
Huh?
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, well, why don't you? You ask the question, you answer yourself.
Jean Parentoni, SSP Architects. As you are aware, it's 6 projects, a lot of construction, and one of the things that, talking with the finance, you understand that there's a whole strategy that goes in with the finance. There'll be an equal strategy when it comes to construction in terms of the rollout of the projects. Overall, we may need 3.5 years to get all the work done because some of the work can only be done in summers. So if it passes in December and we basically start in January, the first year for most of the projects, you're really doing the design, the detailing, the code analysis, the reviews and those things. Some projects, probably site prep and some of the smaller target projects could be done that first summer of 2020, so the January 2020 to the summer period of 2020. The other bigger projects, the one that require fabrication, whether it's modular construction off-site that we bring on, will take the other 2 summers at least to get done. We'll have projects that'll be rolling out. Some will be worked on continuously for like 2 years, and then that will be done. Others will wait their turn because they might need 2 or 3 summers to get the work done. So again, it's all done for school safety, security, making sure that we're not interrupting the operation of the school because this district has to continue to operate the schools to the best of their ability. 2 of the schools have really immediate pressing needs with demographics, so and enrollment. So we will be looking at that as part of the strategy. I'm talking about J.P. Stevens as well as Lincoln School. So in particular, we'll be looking for ways to expedite some of the relief in terms of the square foot with that. So altogether, 3.5 years, a lot of summers, and some projects will be done sooner than that, as soon as possible.
Yeah, there will be a lot of planning for that. You know, for some of the smaller projects like elementary schools and middle schools, scope-wise, it's a relative smaller. Maybe we can get it done quicker. But for the 2 bigger ones, it's JP and Edison High. Those probably are going to take a little bit longer.
Right, and one of the reasons why we're looking at the strategy of doing some off-site construction is because basically you have fabrication going on off-site while the site preparation can be done for the school, so that they can be very assembled quicker on the site with the actual built capacity component. But the site work itself is pretty extensive, and particularly at J.P. Stevens, well, actually at both Edison and J.P. Stevens, so there'll be really time a lot for that site work.
Thank you.
Question,
Yes.
how many contractors do you foresee working on these various jobs at once?
We have 6 sites, so potentially you could have 6 contractors. We may have more than that. That's actually another strategy because some of the renovations, we may actually group some of the summer renovations. So it's one contractor, but he's doing toilet renovations at a couple different schools at the same time. So that's actually part of the planning process, is to figure out what kind of contracts we want, how we want to do it. And we typically do it as a way to kind of work around schedule as well as to get an expertise so that you have good cost savings. So a contractor that might be doing 10 toilet renovations can give a very sharp, good price for that because it's a large size project for what their specialty is. So we look at a couple factors when we determine that. But I imagine that with a referendum this big, you'll need to have, obviously construction management services. So there'll be people designated with the boards, working with the board in terms of really helping to oversee the management of the construction process.
So then how will that affect knowing how much to borrow at different times?
Because that's what we actually do. We have to feed them information. When we have the strategy in terms of what's best construction-wise and what pieces need to go first, second, third, and we'll do that with the board, with the facilities group of the board, figuring out some of the priorities with that, then we feed them what we estimate for the drawdown. And then they're conservative. They make sure that there's enough money because we're going to say there's, the money the first year is less that we need because we're still in design and code review. But that first summer we'll have a chunk of money, then the next 2 summers we'll have substantial amount of money. So this is what we feed into the financial plan.
Thank you.
Okay. Other board members? Any public comments? Yes.
Bill Brunner, 215 Loring Avenue. Who's going to do the background checks on the various general contractors and especially subcontractors? Will you be doing that?
We do have requirements in the specifications for the bidding. We do have requirements for that information, and that is the responsibility of each of the contractors to provide that information. So, yes. And we'll work with the district as to who they want to have as the vetting organization.
Well, that's what I
for
mean.
that.
Do we, excuse me, do we have to do the vetting, or will you or one of your people do the vetting? Because I'm not too sure we're qualified.
We can discuss it if we don't have the, you know, the person will, you know, have the qualified people to do the
Yeah, there's
the stuff.
expertise out there for this vetting that's done. It's not being done by Dan. Not that he could do it, he really trained himself, but he's not
Why,
trained.
he's got a lot of money in his pocket.
Okay. All right. No more questions, so thank you very much. I'm pretty sure we're going to talk more about this. Thank you for coming in. All right. All right. Next up is something that we have talked before. It's the you know, performance audit. We could not find a good time to present. The plan was to present a little bit earlier, but you know, they just happen to have time this month, so we're able to do this. This has been going on for more than a year. But before they come here and present the findings, I just have to make some statement here. As a president of the Edison Board of Education, I, along with several members of this board, took up the challenge of identifying and eliminating fraud, waste, abuse, and fat from our school district. We owe it to the residents of Edison, the taxpayers, parents, and students that we ran an efficient school district. Money should go to our classrooms and educators, not vendors getting fat and happy off our hardworking taxpayers. These problems may predate my time as board president, but we will not allow bad practices to continue. This is why this board unanimously approved a performance audit of the district last year. It was the first time in recent history that the board asked for a performance audit. We did it voluntarily. Tonight, we will have a presentation on the findings of the audit. We will hear the qualified independent professionals on where the administration can improve. Tonight's audit presentation is not meant to point the fingers, but there are some findings that are gravely trouble me, particularly as it relates to the bidding process and record-keeping process. I expect that we will implement reforms to cure these deficiencies. Some of them has already taken place. This audit meant to make the school district more efficient. We have already seen the result, $8.2 million saved in insurance and other vendor costs in the past couple years. Money which used to go to multinational insurance companies that is now being directed to cure our overcrowding crisis. Savings in legal costs, savings with food vendors. Every penny counts, especially as we ask our residents to approve a bond referendum, we just heard, so that we can finally solve overcrowding and implement a full-day kindergarten program. Many members of the board, along with myself, strongly felt that we need this performance audit to assure ourselves, as well as Edison residents, that we have a system in place that will make the most of every dollar approved through the referendum. It is my hope that our business administrators and administration will use this performance audit to implement best practices, to reform the vendor bidding process, to ensure we are following not just the letter, but also the spirit of the law. Saying this is how we have always done, it is not a good answer. The system must be accountable, transparent, and verifiable. Once again, I remind our administrators, this is not monopoly money. This is not our inheritance. We have a duty to ensure that every dollar is spent wisely, that we are getting the most for our taxpayers. With that said, Scott.
Good evening, members of the board and administration and the public. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to discuss the results of the performance audit that was performed over the last year. Before I get started, I will reiterate a little bit of what the board president mentioned. This is not a state statutory required audit. It is a voluntary audit done for the purpose of identifying efficiencies and effectiveness in how they operate and perform certain procedures. So it is not a financial audit. I'm not up here to talk about numbers. I'm not up here to go over an audit report. That'll be in a couple months when the audit's done. This is a more focused, in-depth look at certain areas. And in this case, it was the purchasing and accounts payable area. So the presentation that we'll be going over tonight will be up on the board. Just by introduction, my name is Scott Clown. I'm a partner with Wiss & Company, located in Livingston, New Jersey. My expertise is really in the area of municipal and school district government audits and performance audits. We've done performance audits for Camden, Newark, and other entities. So we've done many of these in the past, and we'll continue to do them going forward. And with me is Jessica Foley, supervisor, who supervised most of the work being done over the course of the period of time. This was, again, a proposal process at the request of the board. We were appointed to do the work, and again, it's focused mainly on the purchasing area and focused on the period of January 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2018. And again, it's limited in scope and a focused area where we dig a lot deeper into certain areas, more to identify efficiencies and effectiveness. What were the areas that were identified in our scope? Purchasing, procurement, and accounts payable. We looked at numerous transactions, and I should say before I go any further, I want to thank Dan and the administrative staff for pulling a lot of information, because a lot of it was in the warehouse as well, because it was a year old. But what we asked for is a lot of information regarding purchases that were made above the quote threshold, purchases that were in excess of $40,000, which are items that should be bid. We took a review of the entire vendor master file to see what that looked like, and then went through the process of how certain items are approved through the purchasing process, from the initiation of a requisition to the purchase order, all the way through to the payment, to see if there were areas where certain approvals were not being made, or areas that could have been improved in terms of a more efficient and effective process. We also look at how travel expenditures were approved, and we also took a look at some of the insurance. What was the process we took? Well, early on, we met with several members of the board, had interviews with them to kind of get an area as to where the concerns were, what came up with the idea of having this done, and then we also interviewed Dan and several members of the administration and those that were responsible for the purchasing and accounts payable areas, just to get an idea as to what do they do, how do they do it, and more importantly, what controls are in place to prevent something from going wrong, and making sure that you're ordering things and buying things that are in accordance with statute and so forth. At that point, we asked for a download of all the expenditure transactions made for the 2-year period, and from that, we picked a sample of transactions to look at and ask for supporting documentation to provide us, so we could take a deeper look, to see if the controls were being followed and to see if there were any potential weaknesses in the controls in place. We further met throughout the course of the engagement. On probably every 3 or 4 months, we met with members of the Finance Committee, as well as the administration, to go over preliminary findings. And what I want to mention too, at that point in time, the board did not wait till this evening to start to implement corrective procedures or to improving the procedures that were already in place. And I'll get to some of those early on, but I'm happy that when we had these discussions, the good ideas that came out of those early discussions were implemented during the course of this engagement. And then we'll be preparing a written report of any suggestions and what we identified and provide that to the board, and a final report talking about those controls and so forth. Next slide I'm not going to go over. This is basically the individuals that we mainly met with up front. Most of the work was done with the assistance of Dan and Rich Pepe, and then the individual employees throughout the course of the process. When we first got into the actual procedures and through the interview process, it became apparent that the business administrator was really responsible for a lot. This district has a very, very large budget, $250 million, one of the largest in the state, and the purchasing department was not centralized. It was spread throughout the different departments and so forth. So a lot of the review process came down to the business administrator's office. And if I work with a lot of business administrators, they have very little time to get into the details because there's a much more important things to deal with in a school district in terms of what they have to deal with. And when that person's responsible for all the reviews, some things can fall through the cracks. We also noticed there was no separate qualified purchasing agent in the district. Dan was the qualified purchasing agent. So we brought that to the attention early on, and as you know, probably over the last 2 or 3 months, a purchasing agent was put in place here in the district. We also, during our testing, we identified certain areas where we felt that the controls could be strengthened or improved. And we did identify some findings and provided them to the board. And the following slides are going to go through a couple of those findings that we identified through the course of the engagement. So the first one is that the district did not always, the reviewing of invoices was not always tied back to an executed contract. The contracts were in one place, the purchase orders and the accounts payable documents were in another place, so there wasn't always that tie back to the executed documents and executed contracts. We had the same issue with any contracts under a state contract, which the state has their own list of contracts that you can follow and utilize as an opportunity to enter into various purchases of goods and services. And there's also cooperative agreements out there where there's certain entities that form cooperative agreements where they store various items that school districts purchase, and the same situation was there where we couldn't always tie back the, let's say, the rate that was being charged to what was in the contract. So we felt it was important to maybe tighten up that process going forward. One of the other areas, which is the fourth bullet point, was quotes. Districts are supposed to obtain quotes from at least 2 vendors, and in several cases we didn't find the documentation available. Again, because there's lack of centralized purchasing, a lot of the documentation may have been out of the schools or departments, and we suggest that they really should be put with the final documentation so that they can be reviewed and verified that the quotes were properly obtained by the vendors. A couple other areas where the purchase orders were approved after the receipt of the goods and services. Districts are supposed to do that beforehand. You're supposed to order the goods, put it in the system, and then receive them later on. This happens in every district where districts will go out, buy something, and then after the fact will enter the purchase order. We also identified that there was one credit card being used for one of the vendors, which the credit cards were controlled. The purchases were controlled from what we looked at. The issue came down to that the state really does not want districts to be using credit cards at all. And then in certain cases, some of the information was requested. All the statutorily required documentation for certain items requested was not available. We also took a look at the vendor master file, and that's the computer records that tracks every single vendor that the district utilizes. And typical in any school district is we found that there were 3,250 vendors that were in the active database, did not receive any payments during the year under review. So what that's telling us is that there may have been vendors used 20 years ago that are still in the system that should really be looked at and deleted or gotten rid of, because it just adds more to the database. And then we also found a situation where we had 170 duplicate vendors, which means, and I've seen this all the time as well in school districts, I go in and say ABC company, the next person from that company processing purchase order company ABC. Same company, but now it's in there twice. So we also recommend that they go back through the vendor master file and get that organized and cleaned up so that there aren't showing duplicate vendors. And it makes it easier to control and prevents things from going wrong. And then in one situation, we identified 2 vendors where a W-9 signature that we found was the same person. The vendors were housed in the same building. One had an address and one had a P.O. box, which was a little unusual to us that we found 2 different vendors with the same, basically, signature on a W-9. In looking at the travel, we noticed in certain cases the district reimbursed certain employees for items that technically are not permitted by state travel regulations, and also paid airfare without the proper documentation of quotes. State requires districts to go out and get 3 airline quotes for the travel, and that was not always provided. So what did we recommend as throughout this process? And again, this is not all the recommendations. These are some of the higher level of recommendations, and I'd like to say that a lot of these have already been addressed. The first one is that clearly with a $250 million budget and the responsibilities that fall on a business administrator, purchasing review should not be a priority for the business administrator. And we suggested that hiring a qualified purchasing agent was an important thing to do for a couple reasons. One, it would take the onus off of the administration to look at these items and focus on a referendum or other important things to service the educational side of things. But we also felt that by having someone in there, they could also save the district money by spending more time and having more time to look at pricing and look at bidding and doing more bids and more co-ops and more quotes and have better documentation than was in place right now. So I think in the long run, you may see that you save money because there's more time being spent on finding the best price. We also thought it was a good idea to consider, and again, these are not all required recommendations that they must be implemented, but they're just ideas we had. A lot of the larger districts are implementing an electronic contract database. So they went into a contract, it goes into an electronic database. When the payments are being made, they're matched in the same database to make sure that what we are contracted for, we're being charged and we're paying. I know the district has a policy and procedures manual, and we felt that based upon some of the findings here, that manual should be updated. In looking at purchases, we also felt it was important to attach a copy of a state contract or a co-op agreement to that purchase order or to that voucher to again verify that what the state says they're going to charge you is what you did get charged and what you were paying. In regards to quotes, we felt that it was more important that they can do quotes outside, but we suggest an electronic form be utilized where it clearly documents that I obtained quotes from person 1, person 2, person 3. Here's why it shows the lowest responsible quote, and that would be in the permanent records as well, as opposed to potentially getting lost or being maintained separate from the overall reporting package. Also do their best to process purchase orders and send out directives to remind the staff within the district that you are not permitted to buy something prior to an order being placed. Again, that's a very, very common finding in most of our school districts. It happens. It's not a lot, but it does happen. And the district should refrain from using that credit card, which I know immediately bringing it to their attention, they cut it up and canceled it. The district should also adhere to state travel regulations. These were little things here and there that, there's a lot of documentation each employee has to submit for travel. And when you dig deep into a 10-page document, there's a little receipt from a restaurant there that there's a lot to look at. So there are little things we found here and there that are not completely in accordance with the travel regs. Periodic review of the vendor master file to remove inactive and duplicate vendors would be a good idea. And then also develop safeguards and other things to come up with more of an electronic data document storage and management system than they have in place right now. Now, from meeting with finance, there are a couple things I know have already been put in place. One being the qualified purchasing agent, which we think will take care of the majority of items we found here. They are looking into development of an electronic database to do some of those things, to store contracts. And then there were some other things that they're doing as well. So what pleased me about the process is that they were proactive in doing this, felt the need to do it, went forward, and took immediate action as upon all of our meetings. So there was timely feedback going back and forth, where, again, a lot of these things were already implemented, and I think that they'll come up with more of a formal corrective action plan as the final report gets issued. Again, these are the items that are the four or five items that have already been either initiated, implemented, or in the early phases of going through the process. And that pretty much concludes the overview of the report, and I'd be more than happy to open it up to any questions the board may have.
Okay, so then we talked a little bit about the remediation that we have already done. Do you have any additional thing to add that we have fixed so far?
Well, right now, we did hire the purchasing agent. She's doing a great job. She did send out an email to all of the staff. I'm sure you've all seen it, introducing herself to you to let you know that she was going to now be reviewing all of our purchasing practices. She's going to review all purchase orders before they get to me. So if I don't see her name on it, that she approved it, which means she's going to check to make sure the quotes have been met. If there's a bid item, it's going to be bid. And then after she approves it, then I know it's been vetted, and then I'll get it and I'll approve it. So we still want to move it quickly, because I know a lot of these things you order, you need it quickly. So we don't want to be tied up in red tape for, 2 weeks. But we do turn it over quickly, but I do want to make sure that we're in compliance with the law.
Any other? You want to add the training and stuff?
Well, yeah, we also, we're doing some training. She's already gone some workshops. She'll be doing additional workshops. She already updated our purchasing manual, which in the email you saw that it'll be available for everybody very shortly. I'm also going to do some staff development for some of our accounts payable people to make sure that they know what they can and can't do. I know they're already very knowledgeable in that, but it never hurts to have it enhanced. We also are going to be looking at electronic bidding process. There are some online ones that we want to see if we can look into that and see if it's something we can implement very shortly. And hopefully that will take care of most of the things on here. We are, like Scott said, we took care of a lot of this stuff. As soon as it came to our attention, we did corrective action immediately.
All right. Rich, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, we know I felt we needed a purchasing agent, because when I look at the budget at the Board of Education, it's $250 million. I look at the Township Edison, their budget's roughly $140 million, and they have a purchasing agent plus a couple assistants. So, I just, with the thing we have with the Tiny Tots, I just felt that there was a need to do something. And that's why we asked you to come in and take a look at it and, get your recommendations. And the purchasing agent, I think, is well needed, because I know Dan works. He puts in probably 90 hours a week. But just the size of this district it's just immense, and I think he needs a department dedicated just to that. So I thought it was a great recommendation.
Okay. Anyone has any comments, board members? So I just want to reiterate, this is not a finger pointing. This is, we started the process. It's because of Tiny Tots. And again, we know that we're going to have a bond referendum coming up. It's going to be a big number. So we want to clean up all the processes, fix out all the, the deficiencies before we go out and ask for this bond. So I am very thankful for Scott and his team to do this audit, so we can, implement some good policies and procedures moving forward to make sure all, every dollar is spent correctly. We will not have any issues, down the road. So, thank you. All right, so now let's just go to our other regular items here. Public hearing, violence, validation, vandalism report. Mrs. Cantauti, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Shi. The Violence and Vandalism Report is submitted annually to the New Jersey Department of Education. The current report indicates the number of violence and vandalism incidents reported by each of our schools for the 2018-2019 school year. As you can see, there is an increase in the total number of incidents for the 18-19 school year as compared to 17-18, the majority of which are under the category of substance abuse, which is inclusive of vaping. The community should also be mindful that as the increased enrollment we have been experiencing in 12 elementary schools filters up into the 4 middle and ultimately 2 high schools, it is safe to predict that increased numbers of students will also impact the number of incidents in all categories across the board. Thank you, Mr. Shi.
Okay. So, since you mentioned vaping, and Patrick's not here, I just want to mention that what we have done. I think last semester, we had a seminar. We have some expert come from law enforcement and some other areas to share with parents the danger of vaping and how to identify them. We had a pre-registration of that event. 300 seats was very quickly taken. That was full house. We also have as a lot of people know that their program has been kind of revised in New Jersey. You can Google why. There's also with limited resources in the Edison Police Department, so there's no full DARE program. We already have it planned this year for this semester. There will be revised DARE program. You can call it a revised DARE program. Vaping will be part of the topic for this revised program. The program will be rolled out to all the schools this semester. So the kids will be, taught about, to get away with the vaping. And we're also planning additional seminars, just like what we had last time for this school year. So a lot of the things are coming up. We had several meetings with a group of parents, concerned parents, right? In the room behind. We heard their concerns. So we'll continue to implement some of the suggestions they have suggest to us. So things are coming, and the vaping thing, it's not a school only thing. We need a lot of help from the parents, right? There are certain things the school can do. There are certain things by law the school cannot do. We cannot randomly go search the kid. We cannot randomly go open up their, the lockers. I'm sorry. So, but the parents can do more, right? Parents can go home. When the kids go home, you can do whatever you want to do, right? And in the past, when we talk about, smoking stuff, Patrick mentioned that, we encourage parents to hug your child, right? When you hug your child, you're not only showing your love, but at the same time you smell. You can smell his hair, you can smell his clothes, so you can identify a lot of things. So yeah, vaping is a big problem, and the devices are getting more discreet, and something don't even have smoke. You don't even see the smoke. So we need a lot of help from the parents as well to help us to help your children. But we also have programs that's coming up. We have seminars coming up. So the public will be notified for all these programs. Okay. All right. So move on. We have a meeting minutes for August 14 and 26. Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. The agenda. Yeah, we have a public comments for violence and vandalism. Anyone? Yes, please. Sorry.
Carol Badowski, 39 Jonathan Drive. First, I was very excited to see that there were no incidents of violence, vandalism, weapons, and substance abuse at all in our elementary schools for this past year, 2018, 2019. I had been getting a little concerned when our number of violence, all of those incidents, had been decreasing for a long time. And then right when Mrs. Conway and I retired, it started to inch up again. I'm glad to see that it's coming back down. Maybe it's because she's on the Board of Ed, I don't know. But it was encouraging, though, to see the things, we still have things to work on, but it seems like we're back on an upswing, and especially because there were like none in the elementary, which was my field, so I liked seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? Yes.
Bill Brunner, 215 Loring Avenue. Have you looked into the reason or any possible reasons why at J.P. Stevens the increase in violence and substance abuse seems to have picked up quite a bit at that school? Have you looked into possible causes?
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
No, that's it.
Okay.
I embedded that, Mr. Brunner, in my response, that the majority of those increase were directly related to vaping, and the fact that their numbers have increased tremendously over the last few years.
Well, vaping would certainly apply to substance abuse, but I doubt if that applies to the violence.
It's all grouped in one. They don't separate it, the state.
I don't have an answer for you, Mr. Brunner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other comments on this topic? Yes.
Anthony Dameron, 15 Rodax Circle. Just to reiterate, the DARE program itself is not coming back, or have you worked with the police department, or what are they telling you?
There's no DARE program in New Jersey, but we have we call it a revised DARE program.
Okay.
Yeah,
revised.
it's coming, yeah.
Is it called DARE though, or is it called something else? Or?
I don't know what they call it.
Okay.
It's might be
Because
something else.
I remember I did speak with the mayor earlier this year, and he, if there is any issues, I will reach out to him again, because I think it's that important, so.
It's not, it might not be called DARE, it's called something else, but
That's
it's
what I
a
don't-
similar, it's
yeah,
similar,
yeah,
yeah.
you call it mashed
The
potatoes, as long as
content's
it's-
the
yeah.
same, yes. No, we're not called mashed potato. Okay, any other issues? Yes, Mr. Councilman.
Sam Joshi, 15 Carriage Place. I'd like to, one, congratulate you selecting the acting superintendent. Good job on that. But I also wanted to come here to congratulate Ms. Polkowski. Months ago, I'm very delayed on that. I just wanted to say, Ms. Polkowski,
It's not this topic.
oh, well, in that case,
It's
I will
this
just sit
topic
back down
only.
again.
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm very happy to see you here, Councilman. I've been 6 years. It's the first councilman coming into the school board meeting, but I'm very happy to see you. But you can, come on later on public comments.
You can reiterate those comments again later on.
So we'll do it twice. We'll do it twice. She likes it, okay?
Make sure you throw Mr. Ross's name in there, too.
Yes. Well, he's not at Edison High,
But
so.
he's not here.
All right, so move on. We have the minutes for August 14th and 26th. So anyone has any questions or comments, please contact Dan. So next item, administrative reports. Margaret again.
Good evening, everyone. With regard to the school self-assessment for anti-bullying, as required under the New Jersey State Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, districts are required to report the results of each school for the prior school year. The information that was attached to the board agenda is for the 18-19 school year. Each school, through its school safety and school climate team, is required to evaluate its implementation of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. That period was from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, by using the self-assessment tool. The self-assessment tool includes 8 core elements that address anti-bullying rights requirements for school. The school safety and school climate team must assign a rating for each indicator based on the criteria and available documentation for their building. It is essential for school staff to maintain sufficient documentation that will substantiate its rating on each indicator. The maximum grade a school may receive is 78, and I'm happy to report that once again, all schools have passed. With regard to the approval of policies, the Board Policy Committee has been working diligently with the Board Attorney. You will see on the packet for Monday that there is a need for 11 policy revisions and 1 new policy. Under the area of curriculum and instruction, there are several curriculum guides up for approval for the 1920 school year, again inclusive of work that was done over the summer for revisions. Field trip approval, there are 2 more FCCLA trips planned for the fall. Under professional development, we all know that that begins in earnest at the start of every school year for educators, and that will be seen on this month's report. Under the area of pupil and special services, with regard to the out-of-district placements up for the board to review, there are several terminated placements, change of placements, and new placements of students that are identified on that report. With regard to professional services, there are additional services for homebound students as well as assistive technology and communication. And the nursing services plan for the 1920 school year has the annual update of names, assignments, and coverages for when nurses are absent. Mr. Shi, if you'd allow me, I had a few other comments I wanted to add.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I would like to thank all of the staff members, certificated staff as well as non-certificated staff, for their positive energy that translated into a very smooth opening of schools. Students and parents were welcome back and were anxious to begin working, much as if we picked up right where we left off in June. The opening of the new modular at Woodrow, as well as the upcoming opening of the modular at FDR, offer great learning environments for our children. The FDR modular addition will be up and running within the next few weeks, I am told, at the Finance and Facilities Committee that just met yesterday. I look forward to reporting back to the board about another successful opening.
Yesterday?
I look forward to reporting back to the board about another successful opening of instructional space that will enable us to ease the overcrowding in our schools. So on behalf of all administrators, parents, teachers, and support staff, a special thank you to the members of the Board of Education for investing in the future of all our students. This is a great start to addressing the needs for all learners in Edison. For the past 18 years, we have also had the responsibility during the opening weeks of school to recognize Patriots' Day as a school-wide community. You should know that Edison students were involved in age-appropriate activities to memorialize the meaning of September 11th, from having elementary children dressing in red, white, and blue, singing "You're a Grand Old Flag" or "God Bless America," or also writing thank you notes to first responders that they decorated with their own special artwork. Or, more importantly, at the secondary level, engaging students in meaningful educational instruction that help them to be reflective and think critically. I've been asked to please note a special recognition on behalf of the Project United Folk. We would really like to recognize Edison HVAC for their continued generosity towards the Thomas Jefferson Middle School Special Needs Program as it relates to Special Olympics. For the past 2 years, that company has paid to transport unified students to Gia Marie's Farms, Sandy Hook, Turtleback Zoo, Rutgers Cook College Animal Farm, Rutgers Geological Museum, and Jenkinson's Aquarium. The owner, Mike Irapino, I am proud to report, is a graduate of J.P. Stevens High School, and he has always been more than willing to help our special needs students. Edison Heating and Cooling has donated $1,200 over the past 2 years to help fund field trip transportation for the students at TJ. On behalf of the teachers and students, we thank you, Mr. Irapino. That's all for me, Mr. Shi.
Thank you very much. The engagement from the community is very important for the success of our district. So next up, Dan, business and administrative reports.
All right, if you turn to your investment report, you'll see that we received interest for August in the amount of $54,622. So bringing our total for the year up to $112,494.
Sent you an email.
I have The next 6 pages are the board secretary's report for the month of July, along with the
Well, anyway.
treasurer's school monies report for the same period of
You
time.
didn't ask.
And then the resolutions that'll be presented Monday night for board approval. We do have a transfer of funds for $251,000 for the month of July. You'll note that most of it's coming from the workman's comp account, and I'm happy to say, because our workman's comp's been running very well, and our claims have been reduced. We had a fairly significant reduction in our workman's comp insurance claims, so I was able to use that to cover most of these expenditures. Item number 2 is appropriation of the homeless children's funding, in an amount of $600,000 for educational supplies and $325,000 for capital instructional equipment. And mainly that's for the increase in our enrollment, because we have to increase the number of computers we purchased. We also, if you remember last month, we obsoleted 4,600 Chromebooks. We had to replace those. And also to outfit the 20 classrooms, the 10 over at Woodrow Wilson and the 10 over at FDR, between Promethean boards and the furniture and everything else. So we're appropriating the monies to cover those expenditures for the opening of school. Item number 3, those 4,600 Chromebooks I just mentioned, we would like to be able to do an online auction with those. The state has approved GovDeals as one of them. That's the one we think is the best one. GovDeals.com. We'd like to be able to put them up for auction on that site. However, I need board approval to do that, so we'd like to have that approved Monday night. Item number 4, we are again going to receive $17,000 for the Special Olympics Play United grant, which is for the special ed students. As I'm sure you know, it's and actually last year we only got $10,000, so we got $17,000 this year. So we're very happy about that. Number 5, we'd like to award the bid for the cooperative through Hunterdon County Ed Services Commission for gasoline and diesel, like we did last year. And you see the rates that are here. These are above the port rates that are posted daily. Item number 6, the non-public 192, 193 special education funding. We get this from the state. It's very similar to the textbook money we receive, the nursing money, security money. This is specifically for special ed kids. It's called 192, 193, Chapter 192, 193 funding. And we are entitled to, at this point in time, $375,000. It's all for the non-public schools. It's handled through the Ed Services Commission, but we need to have the board approve that by resolution. Item number 7, we had 4 roof projects done during the summer, and two of which we're going to be getting some decent credits back, mainly because of some of the coping we didn't have to replace, and because we were able to retrofit the drains that are replacing the drains, which were in this bids. So the Martin Luther King roof, we're going to get a credit back of $16,929. And Washington School, we're getting a credit back of $14,646, but it's going to be offset by a $4,000 charge because we found some additional wet insulation that had to be replaced. So we're actually going to get net out to about a credit of $10,000 on that project. So it's one of the rare times where you're actually going to receive credits back and pay less than the actual bid was, which we're very happy about. Item number 8 is the non-public school security aid for the non-public schools. We have three listed purchase orders that we need board approval for before we actually have those submitted by the Ed Service Commission. Item number 9 is the obsolete list that we received from the schools. There are 5 schools listed here with some carts and some computers and projectors and things like that they'd like to have declared obsolete. And the final thing is the bill list for the month of August in the amount of $11,678,339. I provided each one of the board members with a copy of the bill list. Some of you called me about some of the things on there already, but if you have any questions, just give me a call. And that concludes my report, Mr. Shi.
Okay, thank you. So then, just real quick, so those 2 credits that we have, is that the traditional roof, or that's the
Those are the
spray
foam
on?
roofs.
Okay. So this is, again, additional saving that we have. We went from the traditional roof to a spray-on. We already saved money on top of that, and this is additional credit that come onto our district. So instead of the money going to the vendors, the money are coming back to the classrooms, to the kids, okay? So then, I think I asked you before, and I just see Sam here, that reminds me, that about the interest rate, that I think the last time we said, what's our daily balance, average balance, $40 million?
No, we're right around, because it's the summertime right now.
Yeah.
It's gonna start dwindling now, but we're sitting right around $20 million right now.
Okay. So $20 million, and you mentioned our interest rate about 4%?
Yeah, it's actually a little bit less than that. We were actually lower, around 3. And I also heard that they're talking, the Fed's talking about reducing the interest rate again.
Yeah.
I believe. So
They did today.
they did today? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so that'll go down a little bit.
Okay. I think it was, last time was said 4%, so,
Yeah.
but I was a little bit surprised to see the interest rate, that we have, because I was expecting a little bit more than the, what was reported.
It dropped the last 2 times they met. They dropped the rate. Right.
Okay. All right, so now let's, open for board member comments. Yes?
Good evening. I have a couple of questions regarding nursing staff. First of all, I'm concerned about the ELC right now. Having been in that building for a couple of years, those children are among some of the neediest that we have in the district, and I believe that they are without a nurse in the building at present. Is that true? ELC?
To my knowledge, I believe the building is covered. That was part of the nursing plan that was shared, so that while there may not be someone there for the entirety of the day, that there is someone assigned for emergencies, yes.
But I think they're from Edison High, and my concern here is that Edison High has over 2,000 students, and I would imagine that the nurses there are busy all day long, and the needs of the babies at ELC are sometimes extreme. So I'm very concerned about this. I also wanted to know how many nurses we have added in the last couple of years to take care of the growth in the population of students.
To my knowledge, it would be approximately 3. I can remember 2 1 year, and then another that was added.
Okay, because I would like for the board to talk about the possibility of adding, like setting a number that once a building is over a particular number of students, we might need to consider, even if schools share a nurse between them, but elementary schools that are over 1,000, because the nurses don't just take care of the kids, they have all kinds of reports to do, and it's not as simple as just putting a Band-Aid on. And finally, on the issue of the nursing, as the nursing staff grows, is there any thought to bringing back a supervisor of the nursing department and treating it as a department of its own entity?
Well,
We can talk about it, right? Yeah. We can talk about all those
Okay.
suggestions.
in the
yeah.
next
Thank you.
budget cycle, for
All
sure.
right, thank you.
Dan, do we have any openings for nurses?
Vacancies?
Yeah, open vacancies?
I don't think so. I
We
think
fi- we filled all of them?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Ralph?
Thank you, Mr. Shi. Couple things. We were talking about vaping. I know I attended a workshop because I'm an administrator in another district, and there are some now very innovative ways to know if children are vaping in bathrooms, especially at the high school. There's sensors that will go off on the principal's phone or the vice principal's phone that will catch them vaping. You could run right in. Cameras outside the bathroom to know who's coming in and out of the bathrooms, and when the alarm goes off on the phone. It's a silent alarm. It's nothing that goes off within the school, but it's a app that's attached to the principal's phone or the assistant principal's phone or whoever it may be. So that's something that we can discuss, Mr. Shi, in a meeting with parents or a committee, if we can invest in that kind of app. I understand it's not too expensive, and I'll try to get the price as well. So that's something that possibly we could look at from preventing vaping in the schools. The other thing is that administrators can search students and can search lockers during the day. So if we had to, we can. As an administrator, as a disciplinarian at a high school in my past, I did that all the time. When someone would come to me and say, listen, so-and-so may have drugs or a weapon in the locker.
You have to have a course, yeah.
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 I would just get my key, my master key, and go into the locker and check it out. Now, you can't call the police because the police aren't allowed to do that unless they have a warrant, but administration can, and I know Mr. Ross knows that, so I just want to make that clear out there. I attended the Edison High School J.P. Stevens football game. Not the same feel, It's not
Is
thank.
that the Labor Day game?
It was a Labor Day game.
Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it was. We switched it from Thanksgiving to Labor Day.
Labor.
Not the same. Not the same feeling. Decent crowd. I did make it to the game, Mr. Brunner, and I delayed my poker game that night till halftime. But it was fun to be at, and see, some of the veterans come back, staff, teachers, coaches, things like that. Not as many as that would come on Thanksgiving, but that's something, again, we'll have to take a look at, and hopefully the state will change their mind and bring back some tradition to our schools. Attended the band competition at Edison High School. 20 bands. It was unbelievable. Very, very large turnout. Hopefully they did well and did some good fundraising, but it was an excellent turnout. I know many board members were there. I know Teresa was there. I know Mr. Shee was there, and I know Beth was there, and Mrs. Conway. That's who I saw there, by the way. Others could have been there, but I may have missed them. So, question on lowering the flag at half-staff for like 8 days that the governor, or even like on 9/11. Do we put out emails to principals to lower the flag, to let them know?
Dan, is that handled through building and grounds? When we let the facility manager know to lower the flag?
The state tells us that we're supposed to have it half-mast. I believe Mr. Taylor received that information. He
Gotcha.
notified the facility managers.
Right.
Because they're the ones that actually go out and do it.
Right. Because I understand that there was a school or two that didn't lower it on 9/11 for whatever reason, but it could have been just an oversight. I just was wondering, because I know I get an email in my district that, and as well as the head custodian gets an email that the flag needs to be lowered, and I just make sure. So, okay, I just was wondering. And then lastly, the Edison High School turf project is underway. We met with administration from the high school as well as administration from here. There's a lot of discussions going on, so hopefully that'll be taken off, and hopefully we get a shovel in the ground by the end of October. And that's it.
You're not telling people what color the turf is?
If you would like me to, Mr. Shea, I will. We are looking after many conversations with the administration from the high school, the coach, the AD, and others. It looks like they would like to have a red and Vegas gold baseball field, just like that. So what their proposal is, the infield would be red, and the outfield, like where the grass is, would be red. The infield portion where dirt would be, and would be normally brown, would be Vegas gold, which is their other color. And now we're trying to determine what color the foul line is going to be, because you can't contrast. So, and I think the reason behind it, after talking to Coach Abeen, or a Benny, I used to be a Bean, now he's a Benny, is that we're trying to distract the competition, the opponent, so they'd be mesmerized by the field and not worry about fielding the ball or hitting the ball. So that's where we stand now.
Okay, so yeah, I think that you mentioned about one school for the flag. So Margaret, can you just add yeah?
Absolutely. Mr. Errico, I
Yeah.
did speak with that building principal.
Okay.
And it was an oversight, she explained to me.
Gotcha.
With the new facility manager, caught up in the hubbub of being at a middle school for the opening weeks.
Right.
And once they realized it, immediately they went outside.
Perfect.
And he really was horrified, so.
Thank you.
Yes.
I saw that we have a district physician. What is that, what is his position there for?
Yeah?
Physician?
District-
Yeah,
Mr. Lee,
district
yes.
physician.
Yeah,
Mr. Lee.
he's on call when we need to send either a student out or a staff member out. He's not on our staff, he's not a full-time person. He gets paid $50 an hour
When he's
on an
called.
as-needed basis. Correct.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I did hear a lot of concern about vaping too. Though I know that this is responsible for the parents, but I also think that the school needs to be doing something to enforce, this kind of thing doesn't happen too often. I heard a lot of them happened in the bathroom. So I did some research. The detector that Ralph was mentioning about, it's about $1,000 a piece. But with cloud service, and after the first year, you pay about $150 a year. I would also like to propose maybe we could, because we have a security guard in the school, if it usually happens during the period break, we could ask the security guard to check the bathroom and, figure out, because I understand it's very difficult to ask the students to tell each other probably, but it might be easier for the security guard to check on the bathroom regularly to, yeah, that's true too. Maybe we'll have some lady security guard to do that. All right, that's all.
Yeah, I spoke with Patrick on that. If you remember that when Mr. Saxon was here, we talked about getting the vaping detectors, but the one that we're looking at is not that effective. And the Jews, that is nothing. So the kids, they would just put it in here, they would just smoke like that, they would just put it in the sleeve, just do something real quick. So, we'll continue our education on a school side. If there's any devices that we can do, we'll definitely implement them. Patrick was just looking into some of these more advanced devices, and he also mentioned to me that our security guard do actually go to the bathroom. I don't know if you go there and check, but not all the time. So yeah, there are a lot of bathrooms. So we'll see what we can do with procedure-wise to get more folks in there. And the other thing, we do have a program called Stop It, right? We all know that. That's anonymous reporting. So we really hope that our kids just take advantage of that and you stop it to report it. So it's anonymous. Nobody's supposed to know who reported it. Then if we can have a name, we may be able to search the lockers. Okay, so anyone else? Yes.
I just have one question for Dan about the roofs. It seems like every year we're fixing roofs, and we're gone to a new material, and it's cheaper, but is the warranty just as good or better than the old material that we were using?
You get a 20-year warranty on it. It's a spray foam roof. It's been out there for a while, and it's the first time we're trying it. We put it on Washington and Martin Luther King.
And what about the ones that we've done in the past?
They had a 25-year warranty also.
Okay, so
And
it's
many
similar.
of them are still under warranty. So we've had a lot of them done since 2009.
Yes.
But we did a lot of them in 1997, which are starting to deteriorate and need to be addressed.
Very good.
Yeah, MLK, the roof was horrible, so there was a lot of undertaking. So Rich, you're the expert on this. You want to add a couple comments on the roof?
Well, I mean, I just, just to let you know, the amount of roofs that we need to do, I forgot the number offhand, but.
It was more than $1 million.
Yeah, we have millions of dollars worth of roofs to do. Right now, what we've done is we spread them out, I think is it over a 5-year period?
Right. Yes.
So that, you don't have like a $10 million budget hole, but that Dan will allocate, $2 million a year that he'll have for the roofs, and at the end of the 5 years, technically, all your roofs should be, up to date, where you'll have at least 10 years, between 10 and 25 years on them.
I look forward to a year that we don't hear about repairing roofs. The only other thing I'd like to talk about, even though I'm retired, I'm a very busy person. I had the opportunity this past weekend of running from one place to the other. On Friday night, I went to the J.P. Stevens tailgate party and helped to give out some of the food with Margaret Contaldi, and we had a grand old time. And I was just blown away by the fact, and I have to bring it up, and you might tell me that I'm not allowed to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway, Ramon. Pizza Brothers donated 100 pizzas, to the tailgate party. And to be very honest with you, I'm a picky pizza person. The pizza was very good. So I'm very pleased, and I personally thank them for being involved with the school. And if I bring it out and somebody else hears about it and wants to get in on it, go for it. But JP has first bids, actually. After I left the tailgate party, I went to Washington Elementary School for an ice cream social. There were over 400 people attending the ice cream social. So many people had responded. Luckily with the weather, it was done outside. And the only problem with that was by the time I got there was no chocolate left.
That was fair.
But it was a fabulous night. It was a great program, and I truly appreciate what their PTA does for the schools. Most schools are wonderful, but I did get a chance to go to the ice cream social. On Saturday, I went to my first band concert, and I spent 7 hours listening to the bands, leaving the best till the two last bands. Edison High and J.P. Stevens are just phenomenal bands. And the number of volunteers that were at that concert was unbelievable. And I really give Mr. Ross the heads up that he's got a phenomenal group going on over at that school, and he should be truly proud. And I thank you for being the leader of the band. The other thing was I got the opportunity this morning to visit the Woodrow Wilson Middle School modular addition. It was fabulous. I got an invitation to walk around and see the classrooms. The only problem, there was a lot of desks in every room that I walked by, whether it was the addition or not the addition. So that school is still very... bursting. Yes, to say it nicely. So I'm glad that we did it, and I so look forward to being invited back to the FDR edition. I await that immensely. It's not too far from my house, so I usually, when I go out walking, I usually alternate which way I'm walking, but lately I have been walking the same route to check out what's going on at FDR from afar. And I was blown away for the fact that I was there on Sunday afternoon, and there was a truck there with a gentleman in there, and he was there in the truck doing paperwork. And I said, "Who are you?" And he looked at me and said, "Well, who are you?"
You're the foreman.
So they're working really hard, and a lot is getting done, but I'm anxiously awaiting the modular to be done at FDR. So I truly appreciate all the work that's being done. I'm like a little kid, I want it done now, but I'll wait. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually know the guy. I've been there so many times. And I actually went into the FDR a couple of times already. So just on the modular building, we're going to have a teacher right here. If you can say a couple of words for the public comments, I'll appreciate that. On the spirit of giving, this past Saturday, there was a Sai Temple on Oak Tree Road. They donated probably several dozen, probably 3-4 dozen of backpacks. I had 2 boxes of notebooks, pens, pencils, crayons. They're all sitting in my car. They will be donated. All those supplies will be donated to the Lindenau School this year. They will continue to do this. They call it a backpack event. We'll give it to other schools down the road. Okay. The other thing that I don't know if you guys have noticed when you come in, this clothing bin's gone. So all the clothing bins have been removed. Thank you. Just to let the owner know that your clothing bin has not been stolen. Your clothing bin is not stolen. Okay, you have been notified multiple times, and the clothing bins have been stored in a safe place. And we have already told you where the clothing bins are. So please go there and grab them. Put it somewhere else to make good use of it, and just not on school ground. I'm sorry.
Unless they want to pay us.
Huh?
Unless they want to pay us.
Unless they want to pay us. Okay, that's a different story. So with that said, if no more school board comments, I'm open up for public comments, and I'll let Sam to go first.
Take two.
Yes.
So Miss Margaret Cantali, sorry if I said that incorrectly, I want to congratulate you for being the acting superintendent. Good choice.
Thank you very much.
And Anthony Shallop for becoming the new JPS principal. And I've been meaning to come here for quite some time now because Miss Polkowski, I still call her Miss, I won't call her Gail just out of respect because she used to be my principal. And I wanted to say, terrific choice. I've had, you know, it's growing up through the entire district, I can say I will vouch for Ms. Polkowski any day of the week. She is fantastic. She is a great asset that you guys have. I speak very highly of her. And in addition to this, I know that we've been trying, the Board of Education as well as the council have been trying to meet for quite some time now. There are a variety of issues that we do need to address, and I think that they're coming to light, especially more recently because of the development. On the same time, I think that it's important to serving on the council. It's, you know, I hear things from different sides. One of the most, a bigger moment for me, especially, was when I attended the PTO meeting at Lincoln Elementary School. And that was important because I heard directly from the parents as well as, you know, other people that were there how bad the situation was. I do not serve on the Education Liaison Committee. I do not serve on the Overcrowding Task Force. So I've never been made aware in a formal manner what that was. However, in the interest of working together, as Mr. Brescher has been proactive on reaching out, especially I would ask that whatever overcrowding report there is, please provide it to all the council members. I think that that would be very beneficial because to date, I still don't have it. If you have one, please send it. I think it'd be terrific. And then this way we can work towards, you know, from the mayor's perspective and from the council perspective, I hear things all the time. And from directors, I understand the needs of police, fire, roads. Those are the type of things that I hear. I'm sure the types of things that you guys hear are totally different. Going to that PTO meeting, I can tell you I've never heard of complaints about milk and what flavor's being used, but I understand it's a totally different dynamic of sets of, whether it's concerns or complaints that you guys hear from compared to us. Absolutely two different things. Both are equally as important. When we do meet, I will say after that conversation that Mr. Brescher and I had, I followed up with Mr. Errico, our business administrator Maureen, Councilman Patil, Councilman Bob Deal, and we're trying to figure out a date to actually meet, sit down. One of the things that I think we should do, and I say this publicly because I want it to be known, I think it's important for us to figure out a master plan. We have not looked at the Addison master plan for more than a decade now, and it impacts not just the township, but collectively it also impacts the entire Board of Education. I think that we may need to make an active effort. Until we solve that problem, until we actively work on the master plan, I don't see how we can get towards a long-term solution. And I've been saying this openly for quite some time now on the council as well as the last budget hearing as well. I'm willing to say that as a 30-year-old single person, I'm willing to meet anytime as long as it's not when I'm on vacation for that 1 week. But yes, I will make time whenever. The last thing, and I wouldn't want to talk about things where I can typically just pick up the phone as an elected official and just call you guys about, except this is an issue that I think many of you have heard. This is my third year officially bringing this up. I think that we need to have some sort of a program or an outlet where alumni that have been part of the school system can go back to the various teams, organizations, and clubs that they were part of. I say this because as someone who graduated, you know, more than a decade ago from the school system, I interact with soccer, band, football players all the time that still live in or around the area that just want to volunteer their time and mentor because they have so many things that, you know, out of all the things, they get the most sense of pride in wanting to just be able to give back to, for example, the girl that I went to school with wants to just help out with soccer training. I don't see what's wrong with that. Now, similarly, Mr. Brescher, I know you know where I'm going with this. I was a proud alumni of the J.P. Stevens, John Adams, and Rutgers, actually, Model United Nations program. I did it my entire middle school, high school, and college career. Very few debates were ever lost. And I'm saying that because I'm very passionate about that program, especially at, in the high schools. At my peak, when we were there, we had 200 students. We would attend various colleges around the state. And to this day, I kid you not, when we went for the Model United Nations program, we competed with, private schools who then ended up, students that ended up going to the Ivy Leagues. Me being a Rutgers student, we would compete with people from Georgetown or Harvard. And every time the private schools, especially for medicine, us alumni, we would always win. It's a sense of pride that I still have in this community. And Mr. Brescher, I've been complaining about this for, I want to say, every 2 months for the last, 2
years.
Yeah, at least 2 years. So if there's a way where we can incorporate alumni into the system, I think it'd be very beneficial. Apart from that, thank you for having me here for tonight. I look forward to more communication. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So, you know Gail pretty well. I think now you know your path to get into the Model UN program.
That's the person to go.
That's the person to go.
Yeah, that's the
All right. So, yes, Mr. Brennan.
Bill Brunner, 215 Loring Avenue. I should have taken a seat closer to this thing tonight.
Well, Sam, why don't you move over? All right, let
Are you really considering making a colored baseball field?
All right, ask your other questions, then we'll have Charlie come over and answer something.
Because, no, I'm serious, I'm not joking.
No, ask the other questions.
Well, no, but I just want to say something. The first thing you've got to do is run this by the NJSIAA, because they're going to have to okay that. And you've already had instances in the last couple of years where other teams refuse to come and play either JP or Edison High School because of the field.
Is that because of color or because?
They take, no, just because of the condition of the field.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what we're fixing.
Yeah, but they might never come to a colored field.
Well, then we win.
And, no.
It's a big
You have
advantage.
to play away. Anyway, by the way, raising and lowering the flag to half-staff, are our people aware of the proper way of doing that? Being an old military man, there is a proper way to do it. You lower the flag all the way down, and then raise it back up halfway.
Absolutely.
That's the way to do it. And if they are aware of it, fine. If not, they should be reminded. And last but not least, is the board still planning on appealing the lawsuit against the town?
Yes. It's a board decision.
Can I comment on that, though?
Yeah.
And because I think there might be a misconception. The board is considering appealing the decision of the judge. Oh, well, okay, but let me just tell you the part that kind of got me was, okay, I'll let you. Yes, you go ahead, and if you seem to be missing the point that I was looking for.
No, Rich, say what do you want to say?
Well, it wasn't that we lost the lawsuit. It was that the judge said that we didn't have standing or have a right to have a lawsuit. So
Correct.
we're not fighting the lawsuit itself on the merits of whether it was good zoning or bad zoning. The court said that the Board of Education, like if you live 200 feet away, you have a complete right to sue. But they didn't acknowledge that the Board of Education as an entity had any sort of merit to sue. So that's actually what we're appealing.
I'm just going to agree with Mr. Brescher. That is the issue that the board is appealing. And I won't say anything further about the legal strategy other than that.
Okay, but in other words, you've accepted the verdict, the decision.
No, we're not conceding the verdict or the decision.
Or
We're filing it.
Well, okay.
So like the lawsuit
Just
is.
to answer the question, if we we file an appeal, we're appealing the decision,
Also,
the entire decision. But
Right.
this is the particular issue that we want the appellate division to tell us whether we are right or whether the town was right on that issue. Whether we have standing to file a lawsuit if we are not within the 200 feet radius of the subject property.
well, I think the original lawsuit was a long shot anyway. I don't think you had much of a chance, because it's very unusual and almost unheard of to sue the town, the Board of Education to sue a town over something like that. And developers, of course, usually rule the roost, especially in this township. I strongly advise not to appeal anymore and waste the money. I don't know what it's gonna cost, but whatever it is, it's too much. It's a frivolous appeal, I think. Even if they agree that you have the right to do it, why spend the money just to get that answer? I don't think it's a wise investment in taxpayers' money. I'll not make any more comments. I've got a couple more thoughts, but I'm not going to say it. I just don't agree with the appeal at all. I think it's foolish.
Okay, thank you. But I just wanted to let you know that Ramon also wrote a response to the newspaper. The newspaper just ignored it, but, so, yes, Anthony.
Anthony Diamond, 15 Road X Circle. I agree with the gentleman about the lawsuit. You don't have to comment on it, but I just think that at the end of the day, there's no end game. We're back to square one if it fails again, and I feel like the town feels like there's no plan in place. The people, there's not a lot of support for it out there in the public, and I'll just leave it at that. I wanted to thank a couple people, specifically Board Member Richard Brescher, Councilman Sam Joshi, and Councilman A.J. Patil. Like Councilman Joshi said, we had a meeting last week. We were invited to the Lincoln School PTO meeting, and it was quite eye-opening, to be quite honest with you. We were invited, by the way. We were invited. And I wanted to thank them because they ended up reaching out to one of the PTOs. I've been stressing at this for quite some time now, is that the town and the Board of Ed need to start working together and communicating more. And I couldn't be prouder of what has transpired in just in the last week on its own. You had two sitting council members, a board member reaching out. I know there's some politics behind the scenes, but that's just the way it goes. But they actually are making the effort, and I appreciate it. I know the PTOs appreciate it. I know the parents appreciate it. And ultimately, it reflects onto the students, and the students are the ones that are the benefactors of that. And I wanted to thank all parties involved. Keep it up. I encourage it. I hope more board members and council members get more involved. Last night, I was also at the zoning board meeting. Board member Ms. Conway was there. I believe Councilman was there as well. Carol Badowski was there. And I noticed that when the councilman came up to speak the first time, Board President, you said that it's been about 6 years since the last time a councilman's been here. I'm just curious, when was the last time specific board members been at a zoning board meeting, or a council board meeting, or a council meeting, rather? I know a couple have, I know Mr. Brescher has, but it's, I know.
I'll let you finish.
No, it's fine, you could ask. I haven't seen you there, that's why, I've been going to a lot of them, I haven't seen you there, that's why. So again, I just want to reiterate that. Thanks a lot, guys.
Can you tell them that we were at the pilot meeting and we were told not welcome?
To which one?
The pilot meeting.
The pilot program.
We went to the council meeting and talked about pilot program.
Oh, yeah, well, right.
Me and Mr. Brescher went to the council meeting to talk about pilot. That's the very first time the Edison Township started doing the pilot. You know what the pilot is, right? 95% of the tax, no, just sit.
Excuse me?
90%, it's my turn.
No, go ahead.
95% of the tax go into the township, 5% is to the county. We went over, tried to get the portion that the school need. We were told that that's not the preferred way to do it. They want to go through the committee, and we had multiple committee discussions with the Township School Board Liaison Committee, so that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I just actually my time isn't up yet. I have one more question. In regards to if I'm invited by PTOs to a meeting, this is for Margaret, if you don't mind, Board President. What would be the process? Why would I be denied that, or would there be a conflict there if I was invited to the school for a PTO meeting?
Actually, I was going to talk to Ramon about that tomorrow.
Okay. Did you reach out to anybody regarding myself or anybody that I was supposed to attend possibly to a PTO meeting? And did you happen to reach out to
No, I
any
did not
school?
reach out to anyone.
No school. Well, we'll be doing Oprah requests on it. That's fine. But if there's any communication, I was just curious. So there was no communication between you and any school.
No, I'll answer your question directly. You asked me if I reached out to a school, and my answer to that question was no.
Or any school official.
I did not reach out to any school
Okay.
official, or any PTO president.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Clear enough?
Yes, Carl. Oh.
Good evening, everyone. We are Kyle and Shelley Toms, 125 Loring Avenue. I'm going to start and then let my wife jump in, and then I'll wrap in. We wanted to circle back to the issue of the district physician. We had an experience that we're going through right now with our 11-year-old son who's just starting middle school. So
Sixth grade.
I'll let you start.
And thank you, Ms. Patel, for bringing up the issue. We really are just finding out about all of this year. It's his third week at TJ, Thomas Jefferson Middle School. And preceding all this, we'd been disabled from the Genesis portal for a period of time and had several unsuccessful attempts to have that corrected until the first day of school on September 4th, when I was in this interesting line that was out here. Luckily, I did not need transportation, but I waited several hours and then finally was able to get some assistance from a very nice person here to get us back on the portal. So for the first time, I sent my kids off to school without a homeroom teacher or without a schedule of classes, because after several unanswered calls to the board and to the school over the summer, we weren't able to have that corrected. In any case, on the first day of school, our 11-year-old found out, he heard an announcement that said that he could try out for cross country or soccer or whatever the other sports were, and tryouts were the next day, which he proceeded to try out for cross country and was aiming for an 8-minute mile. He got just above 10. However, this is a very committed young man, and he was very excited about all of this, told us he was going to be on the cross-country team, had begun practicing with the team. I sent in the permission forms and everything that the coaches had supplied him with until about last Thursday, which Thursday the 12th, or last Thursday, September 12th, when he called me and said, he just found out from the nurse that the district physician will not be accepting any more medical forms for the sports, for the fall sports, which he had just found out about. And he was very disappointed in hearing that, and so were we. I tried to troubleshoot the issue with, beginning with the school principal, who directed me to the board. I came up and spoke to a very nice woman at the desk, Ginny, who tried to connect me with the right supervisor of recreation, Mr. Christophas. I'm probably tearing his name up, something Greek, but he was very nice also, but directed me to Mr. Jeff DeCoco, I believe, who also informed me that there was a drop-dead deadline of whatever for the district physician to approve the forms, and not to get my hopes up that nothing could probably be done. So at this point, I reached out to Ms. Contaldi's office. I spoke to, I believe, your secretary, Patty, and she advised me that she would get a message to you or whoever who is, I guess, above Mr. DeCoco and get a response. As of today, we haven't gotten any response. I don't know if the message even got to you yet or to your desk. But at this point, we're a bit dismayed about this whole process. And for an 11-year-old who, when he puts his mind to something, he really wants to do it. And we never even suggested to him to do this. And had been offered this opportunity to do it and had been practicing for an entire week without finding this out. I don't believe this is the way the Edison school district or system should be running at this point.
And so just to follow up on that, we were just really dismayed that, and disappointed that the announcement is made over the PA system. If you're interested in running for cross-country track, then meet at the gym or what have you, and he does this. He practices for a week, runs first starting out with a mile, then getting up to 5 miles. He's the 6th fastest out of 15 kids. And then we're told, he's told that there is a district physician that has a drop-dead deadline, and that's the most inartful statement to have, a drop-dead deadline anyway. And that he's not going to be eligible to run when he was practicing with the team for a week. And when my wife went to school, she was told that basically he's probably not going to be able to be on the team. As she said, don't get your hopes up. Just the way that we're kind of being dealt with this really confuses me, because this should be like a very simple solution, okay? Something was sent, or whatever this deadline was, we didn't have access to the portal. And this is the first year, which is our understanding, that this is even in play. How that's not said the preceding year at Lindenau, if you're going to go to Thomas Jefferson or what have you, this is how things are going to roll out. How nothing is mailed, and that there is this quote-unquote drop-dead deadline. That's even one thing. But to announce it over the PA system, if you're interested, go try out, and he does it, and he gets on the team and practices, and then over a week later is told that he may be ineligible, and we're told probably won't get on board. We just hope that there's something, we want to appeal to the board on behalf of our honor roll student, who's a very committed and determined child, that what seemingly should be an easy fix can be actually ameliorated.
Yeah, we'll look into it. Thank you.
Okay, is there, when you say that, should we just continue the stream with the assistant?
Yes, I was going to ask you to
Okay,
come here
yes.
and give me the correct spelling of your name, so
Okay.
I can speak with Patty about it, and one of us will get back to you tomorrow.
Okay, now or after the,
now.
okay. Thank you all.
Could you spell the name for me right there?
Yes,
I messed
Jerry.
up when
No,
it's
I'll let
took
Jerry
copious
speak first, yeah.
notes. Which is your
Jerry
son's name?
Cambione, H here for court. I was coming up anyway, Mr. Shi.
Wait.
Why don't we just wait 1 second?
Sure, of course.
I'm in agreement with you. Okay. You're very welcome.
You could just send an
You're
email,
welcome.
friend. Join me an email. That's all. It's a, that's all. No worry, I got it. No worry.
We'll fix it.
Yes, go ahead, Jerry.
All right, now, I was coming up anyway, Mr. Shi, although I do welcome your invitation. I am speaking tonight as a member of the staff at Woodrow Wilson Middle School, and I did want to thank the board for taking the first step towards alleviating some of the overcrowding with the construction of the modular wing. The classrooms are wonderful. Yes, there are a lot of desks. There are a lot of students. But I shudder to think what the school would have been like if we didn't have 10 more classrooms to put these students in. But I also do want to acknowledge not just the contribution to the board, but also the time. There's been many board members who've come to visit us. I've had the pleasure of seeing a few of you there myself, and I'm glad you made the time. I know you're all busy to come and see the work that's been done. I do also want to publicly thank the administrators at the building for staying on top of the program, the custodial staff
Yes.
who did a tremendous job, and the secretarial staff, who really coordinated an awful lot. To put this in perspective, on the Friday of Labor Day, Friday afternoon, we received the temporary certificate of occupancy, and we were still able to welcome students into their classroom on the first day of classes. And it does not happen without a lot of coordination from a lot of people. So thank you all for your support of Woodrow Wilson, and for keeping us in mind as far as the overcrowding, and also to all the staff that played a role in making this work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just, on that line, I'd just like to thank a couple of people that they're not here. One is, who is here is Mr. Brescher, and the two persons who were very critical for us to get the permits and the temporary occupancy certificate is John Soltes, his team, his department, and Mahesh Bhagat. They helped us tremendously to get it done.
A lot of communication.
And, a lot of communication went to them. We tell them that they just, before there was a little delay, but once they're on it, we tell them that day, they come. So really appreciate it, the cooperation from the township, okay? And without them, we could not be open in time. Just want to add on top of that, thank you. All right, yes.
Joseph Johnson, 407 Durham Avenue. What I have to speak about is a little somber, so bear with me. Ruben Herrera, Jenna Adamowski, Bobby Delmonico, Eric Steiner, and Milan Patel. Just a few of my classmates, teammates, and friends who have passed on since graduating J.P. Stevens in 2014. As school is officially back in session, I would just like to remind everyone that high school students go through so much, and they're under a great deal of stress, and oftentimes do not verbalize their problems. Yes, it is our job to teach and educate them, but it's also our job to show them kindness, love, acceptance, and respect. I'm deeply saddened that I continue to lose friends each and every year, but I'm encouraged that we as a community can start changing this trend. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Maria.
Hi, Maria Orchid, 83 Jefferson. My first question is, I had previously sent out an email asking if we could instate the ROTC program in our high schools. I didn't know if you had a chance to take a look at that. To my understanding, that is a great program for our community. Also, the members, I had the pleasure of attending Military and Veterans Day at Lennox Park, and the ROTC was there. So I heard a lot of advantages to the program. So I wasn't sure if we could participate in that. I'd like to also say that I think we need more mental health programs for our students. They're suffering in all kinds of phases. Again, the first thing, we should reach out to them and offer their support, and to let anybody know that when they're going through difficult times, that they have someone that cares and that wants to listen. Also, just to say that tomorrow is coffee with the guidance counselors at Edison High at 5:30, and then that's going to follow by a financial workshop. The last thing I wanted to say, I had the pleasure of attending a special advisory meeting with parents. I'm a special ed parent.
CPAC.
Yeah, and for a while, it's very hard to attend meetings at 12 o'clock because I also work. I have a full-time job. But I also care much about our special population. So I would ask the board if they could reinstate the special parent advisory meetings for parents to come together with teachers so we can help our children. Thank you.
Okay, yes. I'm gonna ask you to.
Actually, we had a meeting of the Special Ed Committee with Mr. Conklin, and that issue was brought up of reinvigorating the parent advisory and other programs that we used to have for parents of special needs students. We just don't seem to be doing enough, so we are working on that, Maria.
Yeah,
In regards to mental health, I know a lot of districts are looking at social and emotional learning and programs, so that's something that, Mr. Johnson brought up. As far as the ROTC goes, I think it's a great idea. I know years ago, many years ago, we looked into it, and we didn't have the interest. So maybe we do a survey of the 2 high schools and see. I know there's a cost to it. You have to hire a retired general or someone to run the program. Retired someone, officer, a commissioned officer, retired, to run the program. We just can't run it ourselves. If you remember Mr. Labasi from many years ago, he was on the school board. He was a retired military person, and he was pushing it. And we did a survey, and we maybe got 6 kids between the 2 high schools, so it wasn't enough to start a program. But we could definitely look into it and see if we could get it started.
Yeah, we can definitely look into it, Maria. Yeah, I wish we actually had a junior ROTC program for my daughter. Luckily, without that, she was still able to graduate from West Point. So, yeah, I'm 100% supporting that. So, if we have interest, we have enough kids who have interest, or maybe we can have a joint program with neighboring district. So this is something we can look into it, and I'll talk to who was it, Patrick, or it's probably Gail, right?
Probably Gail.
Yeah, I made a note, I'm
Gail.
gonna make a note.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll definitely, yes.
Matt Redmack, 2 Ethel Road, ETA Vice President. First of all, as far as the ROTC program, I actually was in it in high school, which also helped me to get into Annapolis. So it's nice to have you. I know couple of years ago, I also spoke about the fact that not every kid's going to like Annapolis West Point, but also ROTC scholarships at the college level. Another avenue for kids to be able to pay for college. And it is a great program, and I actually do believe there were 2 people we had when I was in the program, was a captain and a commander. I actually think part of their salary may be picked up by the military as well. So that's something, I think it is a good program. And sometimes some of our students that are even, you talked about violence and stuff like that with Mrs. Cantali's report, a lot of times those are kids that got involved with it for the discipline. And that also helped them out. So anyway, I'm glad it was brought up because that's actually it's a good program. Just a couple other things I wanted to bring up. Number one, it brought up about the flag and the half-staff and all. Yes, Mr. Brunn is correct. There is a proper way to do it because I was actually the head of the color guard when I was in the JROTC program. But realize that right now, the students that we have were not even born in 9/11. And that's something that I hope in programs continue. I know Dr. Sharp in my school, I'm sure Mr. Ross did the same, did an excellent moment of silence and speech beforehand. In fact, I did talk to Dr. Sharp. We have 4 students at JP that perished on 9/11. And there's a memorial in the front, and he did guarantee me next year, I know I had 2 of the students personally, that their names would be mentioned as well. So again, I think it's important for the future that, we don't let those types of things go away, especially since we have kids that weren't even born now at that point. The other thing I want to mention, actually through Dan, you mentioned about the Chromebooks, I'm sorry, I think it was like 4,900 Chromebooks. I'm assuming that before those things go up, they've been cleaned, the hard drives and everything else. Was there any consideration to putting them up for sale at whatever price to either the kids or the parents or the people in the town of Edison? Maybe at some kind of reduced price. Obviously, they're a couple years old, I'm assuming. I know you'd mentioned about putting them up.
Yeah, adult life machines, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know again what their worth is at this point, but for someone that doesn't have anything, if they can get something like that, at least be made aware that these things are going on to an auction site. It's nice to be able to take care of the people in the community first before they go to sort of outside sources.
Well, we would have to advertise it after the board approves it on Monday. We would put it in the paper that site would be available, the date that it would be on auction.
Right.
So they would be able to go on there if they want to take a look at it.
Good, excellent. And the other thing I know Mr. Urkel brought up was the, like the locker inspection and things like that. Going back to my ed law class years ago, I do know it's legal to do. It is school property. And in fact, in the education setting, it's not probable cause, it's actually reasonable cause. And maybe the attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the case was back in the 70s in Piscataway, if I'm not mistaken. I'll check back in my old books. But there was a precedent-setting case.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
It was Piscataway.
It was my neighbor, lived 2 doors down.
Okay, so I was correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in Piscataway. We lived in Highland Park.
Right.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, I believe it was the early 70s when the case was decided, so it is something that could be done. In fact, I remember the professor of the course saying, you should do it on somewhat of a continual basis, because like anything else, if you don't, you can lose that right to do it. So, anyway, thank you.
Can I,
Thank you, Matt.
Jerry, can I just make one response?
Yeah.
Matt, when you were talking about those Chromebooks,
Yeah.
you weren't, because I think Dan's talking about putting them out, they're going to auction them.
Yes.
But Matt's not talking about buying 4,000 of them. He's talking about if somebody wants to buy one or two.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody in the community is gonna go and buy 4,000, but,
Right.
you know, if there's 100 or 200, you know, almost like putting it up first to people within the community, and then whatever's left over to do something like that. You know, or at least informing them it's going on for bid, like Dan mentioned, so that they know that that's a possibility.
Right.
I don't know if it's a bid, what you're gonna get from either. I mean, I've seen things for bid, or, you know, people be like $10 for it.
Well, that's where I was going, right. I mean,
I think there's a state statute that you have to do it a certain way, because just like where I'm at in my district, we're getting central air. So we're gonna remove the window units. I asked if I could donate it to the local Catholic private school. You can't do it. You're not allowed to.
but
Yeah.
could we put them out?
You could put them out, and if no one then buys them or wants them, then you can
Like
donate them.
if we could put them out in lots of 10, to add, just out to the public, it would allow anybody from the public to bid $100 for 10 of them. And it goes to people just, basically, in the community.
Yeah, I could check with Ralph Barker, he's the one who brought it to me, I wanted to know if we could do this as a bulk, but I could ask him, because especially you would want some of the better ones, you'd want to be offering to our staff or our students.
Right.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
the rest of them, we could just. get rid
Dan,
of.
we were on the Curriculum and Technology Committee, and we were talking about this. I think those Chromebook initially cost like $200 for the school, and I'm sure but we can maybe give it to students or family who needs them for like, I don't know, $50 or $20, they would probably want to buy it. It's just that you have to let them know that they won't get any support on the software because
Right.
they are out of warranty, yeah.
Yeah, it's take it, basically take it as is.
Take it as is,
Right.
yes.
So, one final thing, actually, I was thinking as I was going to sit down. I was also at the football game. I agree, there's nothing like the Thanksgiving, although I did wish Mr. Brescher happy Thanksgiving when I saw him that day because of the game. But, it's not the same feel. One of the things you are missing is you're missing the kids that graduated like last year that come
Right.
back for the first time.
They're at college, yeah.
Yeah, you miss them. Okay.
Time is up.
Yes, Carol.
Let you talk about the red cards.
You gotta answer the red question.
Carol
You
Podolsky,
didn't
39
answer the
Jonathan
question.
Drive. Once again, I'm worrying about our special needs students. Mrs. Cataldi reassured me a bit by announcing the imminent opening of the FDR school additions. However, I once again want to caution and question to be sure we are currently meeting the IEP requirements of these students. If we're not, we're breaking the law and depriving our most fragile students of the right to a free and appropriate public education. To go a little further, we also need to carefully monitor class sizes and IEP requirements in all our special ed classes, making sure the student, teacher, paraprofessional, teacher aide ratios are being maintained. And on a related note, I also want to echo Ms. Maroney's concerns on our nursing staff. In particular, having nurses readily available for our students in ELC and FDR, which wasn't discussed. And also Ms. Maroney's suggestion of making sure we have adequate nursing coverages for the number of students now in our schools, because the state bases their recommendations on the number of students the nurse has to service that are in her building or his building. But also, in their figures, they consider different physical and educational special needs that children may have. That changes how many students a nurse should be responsible for, because those students do need more nursing service than other children, more attention that a nurse can give, more monitoring by a nurse. So I just wanted to mention that. That was a very good point, and I just wanted to go one further, that I do know the statistics. For example, if it says one nurse could service a school with making these numbers up from memory, but 800 students. But if there were moderately special needs students who were incorporated in the classrooms, maybe that makes it only 700 students a nurse should be responsible for. And if there were students in special needs, individual self-contained classes, or students with physical disabilities, that reduces the number further of how many students a school nurse can be expected to be responsible for. And I'm very concerned for the school nurses, because my mother was a school nurse, and she had 1,000 children all over town. And as her child, I'm the one that got told to move furniture with a broken arm, until the doctor told her the next day that I had to be immobilized in ice. My arm had to be immobilized in ice for 24 hours before they could put a cast on it, because it was so swollen. So she was so busy taking care of 1,000 children, she didn't take care of me, but, you know, maybe that's just lingering.
Sounds like you
But
need help. Sounds like she has issues.
Yes, I do have issues, but it's really not for me, it's for these children not having the coverage. I know how stressful, how demanding it is on the school nurses to be responsible for 800 or 900 students. And then if some of them have special needs, and then if they're in another building, and the state does, on one of the websites, have that information that they recommend. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Yes.
Adrian Stefanelli, 3706 Hannah Road. Forgive me, I'm not a public speaker, so I wrote my notes. I invited Anthony Diamarin and Sam Joshi to the PTO meeting at Lincoln Elementary School the other day. When they left, they posted on social media and residents were very quick to make comments. On Friday, I made my own personal Facebook post and with my thoughts and concerns about both town and Board of Ed issues, some of which overlap. And again, residents were quick to respond. My post was on multiple issues about security at the school during the nighttime when the buildings are in use by the township. Security at Lincoln during the daytime is outstanding. But my main concern is when the rec center is using the school for their nighttime programs, where does the responsibility fall on the safety of our children for the next day? Is it the town, is it the Board of Ed, or should they both work together to come to a resolution? I also talked about the student-to-teacher ratio, because of the volume of children, the students enrolled in the building, multi-purpose room is now being used as the gym, and the students are now required to eat lunch in their classroom. Because the lunch is no longer served in the multi-purpose room, it is now served in the hallway, which prevents people from easily passing through. To alleviate the lunch lines, the Board of Ed rolled out the NutriSlice app, where parents could pre-order their children's lunches and have it delivered to their classroom. I tried this on Friday, but both of my children got their lunches after all the kids that went up to the lines. They came back, they weren't allowed, they had not a lot of time to eat their lunch. So the issue that I have is it's a snowball effect. A lot of people realize it. There's one problem that causes another, that causes another, and it causes another. One of the last lunch staff members responded to me directly. She was very apologetic, but I'm in the building a lot, so I see this problem, and I'm there for school events. I know the principal, his administrative staff, the teachers, the lunch staff, they do their absolutely best to give to resolve these issues, given the number of students in the building and the limited space they have. It is extremely apparent that they are working as one team. One thing I noticed on the Facebook comments was you could divide the comments into multiple groups. Those that have no clue what's going on, completely over their head. Then you have people that are used to it and it doesn't seem to faze them. You have parents like me and some staff members that are equally upset about how their children, the teachers, and the staff aren't provided adequate facilities at their schools. And we know that overcrowding is an issue across the board in Edison, so I'm not going to say that one is, well, I am going to say one is worse than the other. But it is across the board. Then you have the senior community, which my parents probably wouldn't be happy for me to say this now, but they're going to say, we had the same issues in 1960, but with security, curriculum, technology, There is a lot that changed since then. Then you have the individuals who don't have children, or maybe their kids grew up, they're out of the school system. Regardless, they still are residents, they still feel that they don't want their hometown to be overpopulated, and they definitely don't want their real estate taxes to increase. Enough said. These social media posts were definitely made to spark conversation. That was the intent. And I had a long, informative conversation with Mr. Brescher Sunday night until midnight, when my husband came to bed and said, off the phone. But
Mr. Brescher.
It was the only time that me, as a parent, was able to take out to make that phone call. It was very informative, very professional. And we talked about several of these comments. One of my biggest concerns still that I took away from that phone call was that these issues in our school are not going to, they're not going to go away without having this bond referendum passed. And that was the reason why I invited Anthony and Sam, and I spoke to you willingly about these issues. You know, the towns there, all the departments need to come together. My main concern is, why has the board put all their time, their effort, and their funds into putting this plan in place, but you haven't made an obvious effort to make it known to the community? Okay, one second. Mr. Brescher, your comment to me on public Facebook was you should come and address the concerns to the board, so here I am. We all know that the board is not naive to our issues, but when you have, again, so much time and effort put into this, we need to make it known so that people can make the right decision. Politics aside, again, I invited Anthony because he has a large following on social media, and because these posts, people are now really talking about what is the bond referendum. So I urge you to take advantage of the parents, the PTOs, the teachers, to have them get the information out for you. I want to be an advocate for the board to make all of this happen in the community.
Okay, thank you. So, you know,
Well,
you want, what?
no.
Can I say something real quick in regards to her?
Yeah. Oh, okay, sorry, yeah.
Sorry, Chris Androvich, 60 Miko Road, Edison. In regards to not making him, you said about the board not really showing out about the referendum and all. I know for a fact that Edison High's back to school night, JP's back to school night, Ben Franklin, where I work, both are back to school nights. The referendum was posted the entire night. It was spoken, at least at Ben Franklin, it was spoken about.
Storyboards.
The storyboards, thank you. It was spoken about, and was brought up for sure. So just so you know, it is coming out. People who come and are involved, they know, and if they don't know, I feel like it's not involved as much.
I'll address that.
Can I just?
You want to, don't make it overnight,
Not
okay?
the midnight.
Not the
No,
midnight.
it's not an overnight
Just keep it
conversation.
short.
Midnight with us.
Okay, keep it short.
Yes, but I guess, you know, the most driving, I guess, thing that I heard was why wasn't the board coming out to,
That's what I wanted to
you know, say yes for the bond type of thing? The Board of Education and our superintendent, we cannot come out and tell the public to vote yes or to vote no. No matter how we feel as elected officials and people from the Board of Education, we cannot interject in what the voters decide. The PTAs and PTOs, they're separate organizations, and you are, your hands aren't tied. You can go out there and you can ask the public to vote yes because you know how it impacts your children in those schools. People from our public that are out there can do the same thing, but this board and our superintendent, I believe, cannot advocate for a I'm gonna say a yes vote or whatever other kind of vote you might wanna vote on it. But, you know, we can't go out there and do it. What we can do is we can get information out there, like the storyboards. We can show you what each of the schools is gonna get. We can explain
Why
to
we need
you
it.
why, because we have over 4,000 unhoused students, you know, within our district. But we can't do that. That's up to the public and, you know, to kind of come out there and take that banner and try and get across that finish line.
Just remind everybody.
Yeah, I see you're very passionate. We are actually looking for local spokesperson for this event. So if you be, no, not midnight. No, you're not talking to him. You're okay.
We'll find you someone better.
We'll find someone better. Okay. So as far as our security guard mentioned that we do have the campaign just starting. Okay, so if you go to the back to school nights, those storyboards are being displayed there.
I was aware that it would be
Yeah,
at
yeah.
back to school.
Yes,
but-
and
ramping
you know,
up.
it just is ramping up. You don't do this 8 months before. So you take your time, you plan this, and there will be meetings coming up. Okay, I'm very very glad that you are so passionate about this. We're gonna definitely tap you, to get into this. Okay.
Stefanelli, right?
So we'll get the name, okay, and the address. So there'll be a campaign coming up. But as Mr. Brescia said, we cannot vote yes or no. We can present the facts.
Right.
That's all we can do. We,
And
and the other thing that Lincoln School, there are 2 trailers or 4 classrooms, right? The intention why they were there, unfortunately, that was a quick thing because we had the FDR. Original plan was to put the 4 trailers in FDR, but we put it in Lincoln. The plan is once the FDR building is built, these kids will be moved out of that trailer. You'll have 4 temporary classrooms. And you heard our SSP architect. They're saying that Lincoln and JP are the 2 priorities. Okay? So they are coming. Just give us a little time, and it is coming. Vote the referendum the right way, then we'll try to see what we can do.
Mr. Shi, can I add a comment?
Yes, please.
One thing, because I have nephews there, my brother-in-law lives right behind Lincoln School. And I know, I speak to Mr. Scully all the time, if you ever want to invite any of us, and we are assigned to schools, I think Mrs. Ward's school is Lincoln School.
That's my school.
That's Precious.
Well, now it's Brescia.
It has been.
Brescia pushed Miss Ward out too?
No, it was assigned to him.
First Miss Ward wasn't invited to the meeting, and now he took over Lincoln School. But anyway.
That's his
But anyway, if any PTO out there that's watching wants a board member to come out, because we're all assigned certain schools, but certain times we can't make it out to certain schools, we would be more than happy to come out and give you the information that you need to do what you have to do. I know I have TJ and I have Ben Franklin, so I go to those schools, okay? And I meet with them during their parent PTO meetings and things like that. So, well aware, I attend with my nephews the Lincoln events as much as I can. Twin boys over there, so they'll be there for quite some time. So, yep, we're looking for people like you to come out and, share the message that we are trying to bring to the public. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments?
Yes.
Okay.
Calls me at midnight, I'm
Are
hanging
you
up.
surprised?
If he calls me at midnight, I'm hanging up.
And if he calls at 7 in the morning, I don't answer.
He is an early bird.
All right, let's start. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I was very glad to see the
Name,
board
address, please.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Samuel Marshall, 11 Hilltop Road, and I just want to say that I was very glad to see the board address the town's and the overall country's major issue of vaping in schools at this meeting tonight. And in conjunction with that, I just wanted to ask if, in lieu of the DARE program being in a sort of limbo in the schools now, has vaping education been added to the health class curriculum as of late, or is that still in the works?
Do you have any other questions? Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
and
yeah.
A second question I had was when I noticed that the numbers for JP were slightly higher than Edison, and regardless of that, in either case, I was wondering when a student is caught abusing substances, what is the procedure for what is done from there outside of punitive measures that are taken? Are they given any resources with which they are to take home? Are they sent to any specialists? Are they sent, basically, how is the situation specifically assessed in terms of individual students to determine what is to be done in that case?
Okay. That's it?
Yes.
Right, move on.
Sure, I'd be happy to address that. There are a number of resources available in each of the buildings. Primarily for me would be the school counselors, and it would really be handled on a case-by-case basis to see what the needs are of the individual student. But I'm sure that we would volunteer seeking out. I know that we use Rutgers Behavioral, if there are other issues. But again, it's on a case-by-case basis, so the professionals will become involved. Certainly, child study team, psychologist, social worker, what's going on in the home, those types of things. And then, yeah, we would certainly get each individual student the help that they need.
We have a vaping curriculum, Ms. Gonzalez, do you know?
I'm sorry?
A vaping curriculum?
Yeah,
or
be
class?
added.
Can I tell you, I think that it's so new, I'm not sure that it's in the curriculum, to be honest with you.
I'll have to look at that, yeah.
But I am making a note to find out.
Yeah. Patrick's saying they're working on it.
Working on, Patrick's working.
Yeah, it's
Our
the,
Chief of Security is working on a
yeah.
program.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a policy meeting coming up on the 27th of September, in which I invited our security director to discuss vaping and whatever measures maybe we can address through policy, and if maybe through the curriculum committee, if maybe we can work together somehow with whatever ideas we all come out with. So we are working on it in various different ways.
And where will that meeting be held?
Oh, that's our internal committee, but, so here.
Okay. Right. Any other public comments? Yes, Andy.
Andrew Heibel, Howard Avenue, Edison. First, on the flags on the half-staff, the federal government recognizes 5 days throughout the year that the flag should be put at half-staff, regardless if there's a memorandum from the county, and that would be police officers' Peace Day in May, Memorial Day itself with the flag only goes to half-staff till noon, Patriots Day, which is September 11th, Firefighters Memorial Day in October, and Pearl Harbor Day in December 7th. As we all know, we lost a Pearl Harbor survivor last week, Pearl Harbor Day for the Arizona. The U.S. Arizona has 3 living survivors left, and that 4th person that just died last week, his remains will be entombed into the USS Arizona. Second, on the policies, I heard earlier in the day, earlier in the evening, you're going to be approving numerous policies on Monday. I was here numerous times years ago. I will again ask the board to revisit policy 0131, which states that if the board is going to make revisions or alterations to board policies, that they should be a first revision presented to the public at a meeting. Then the stakeholders, the residents, and the parents will have an opportunity to offer opinions and suggestions to be given, and then the policies will be presented again at a second meeting for a final vote. So I would ask you to please revisit policy 0131 in your closed session, and for Monday night, the policy should only be a first draft on the board agenda, and then you're asking the public for $190 million, so let us have some input on your policies as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? See none? We'll go into closed session then.
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances. And whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be resolved by the Board of Education of the Township of Edison as follows. 1, the public shall be excluded from discussion of and action upon the herein specified subject matters. 2, the general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Attorney-client privilege discussion regarding board policies, litigation brought up by former employees, solar project, Township litigation, student matters, Edison Wetlands Association contract, ETEA grievances, perk, unfair labor practices, and personnel matters. And under personnel, we'll be discussing resignations and terminations, retirements, appointments, leaves of absences, changes of status, longevity, stipends for paras in the MD, LLD, and autistic programs, freshman orientation, substitute staff, breakfast aid, hourly breakfast aid, salary adjustments for certified staff for professional development credits, and also for non-certified professional development credits, Special Olympics Project Unified Grant, FCCLA appointments, middle school team leaders, coaching appointments, and job descriptions. 3, is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists, and 4, this resolution shall take effect immediately.
Can I have a motion? To go to closed session, all right. Mr. Erico, second. Okay, Mrs. Conway.
Dr. Chen?
Yes.
Mrs. Conway?
Yes.
Mrs. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
Yes.
Mr. Erico?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
All yes.
All right, so, thank you, everyone. We don't intend to come back, so I'll see you guys on Monday.